Once a shining star of public schools in the entire country, Montgomery County Public Schools suffered quite a fall from grace in recent years. Parents, teachers, and students all felt this fallout as MCPS endured scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal. It kept going. A new superintendent, though, took over a year ago, and everybody is curious, what does his first year report card look like? Well, today we're going to talk about the latest. Is MCPS finally turning a corner? And bonus news, you guys, guess what I have? I have the updated college stats for the county. So we're going to talk about that too. So don't go anywhere. I am Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama. This is my channel. I talk about all things real estate here, and I help people buy and sell houses in the DC metro area. I've lived here like 20 something years. It's been a long time. Anyway, and if you are interested in that, you can subscribe so that you get notifications. And also, of course, please reach out if you are looking for help in your real estate endeavors in the DC area. All right, so I attended a roundtable with various community members and reporters to discuss the state of MCPS and the effect of the new superintendent. There are a few current hot button issues facing the schools. If you didn't see my video from early 2025 about MCPS basically being a dumpster fire, you might want to watch that so you can actually see what station this train has rolled in from. So the too long didn't read rundown, though, is this. There was a sexual harassment and bullying scandal that went unaddressed by the former superintendent, and that was not with students, you guys, that was with the principal. There was a departure and the outrageous payout to the disgraced former superintendent. There was a reduced budget, which almost felt like punishment for MCPS mismanagement of like so much. Oh my God, so much. All right, let's start with the superintendent, the report card here. So we are embarking on the second school year now where Thomas Taylor is the new superintendent. So Thomas Taylor is proud so far of his accomplishments to increase transparency and improve school outcomes per Bethesda Magazine, but he concedes that there is more to do. At the end of his first year, the budget passed was $3.6 billion for 2026, which is the largest budget that they have had ever. They plan to use these funds to increase staff salaries, add to special education and security departments, create additional materials for students who need more support. There have been a lot of wins and a lot of positive change. Taylor also gets along well with the school board, which is like critical for positive change too. You don't want that relationship to be combative. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. An area of change that some argue was not very transparent was to the discipline policy. So punishments for things like fighting, that was increased. Some activists argued that these changes could have negative impacts on some students and said that MCPS should have engaged with the community with more involvement here. The superintendent, though, responded, and he said some decisions have to be made and they just can't be shared, with everybody and have every detail mulled over and hashed out. I think that's fair. All right, so MCPS has not yet been able to address large class sizes and the ratios of students to staff. Other items that they still have to address are the ever-present boundary changes and changes to school programs that are happening like within the schools. So, and central office, as they call it, or what I always refer to as like the administration, which are all the people that sit at desks and don't deal with students on a daily basis. So they didn't have enough reorganization and new blood added to that area for some other meaningful changes to occur.
Come on, I bet you can't wait to see the Xerox room.
Look, it's not going to happen overnight. We all know that. The summary so far is that the new superintendent is performing about as great as he can with just about a year under his belt. He does have a 10-year plan, though, for getting the schools in Montgomery County back to the 4 and 5 star on the Maryland Schools report card. Right now, only half of MCPS earn a 4 or 5 star rating. All right, let's move on to the current hot issue in MCPS. This is current, hot off the presses right now. Possibly in response to more conservative efforts of our presidential administration, we now have what MCPS calls the refrigerator curriculum. Why is it called this? Is it called this because you can just open it up and pick and choose items that you would like you might with a refrigerator? No, it's because you're supposed to hang it on your refrigerator. I know. I read way too deep into why they would call it that. So once a quarter, families are going to receive a memo that outlines what your child will learn in each subject. Inherent in this new endeavor from the schools is the message of transparency, including families in their child's education. The other goals noted are to celebrate diversity and also allow parents to opt out of anything that may conflict with their religious views. Now, there are progressive advocates who feel that this will morph into a book ban, or that any LGBTQ literature will be removed from class libraries if a parent were to send an opt-out and say, well, I don't want that in the library at school or in the class library because I don't want, little Becky to be sitting next to somebody that might be reading that or whatever. This has a way to go. We all know that. So the general consensus among the teachers and families seems to be, though, that the new superintendent, Mr. Taylor, is heads and tails ahead of the past leadership. Everybody is looking forward to a very positive future. Finally. It's my daily Diet Coke. All right, I know what you're here for. You want to do the college results. Let's discuss. So it's my favorite time of year. Well, one of them. This is when Bethesda Magazine publishes the results of 8 Montgomery County public high schools and the outcomes for applications. All right, now I say this all the time, but there's a longstanding belief that Walt Whitman High School is the best of the best, and that you would be an idiot if you would allow your child to go to any other public high school in the county. It's time to check those results. So in here, let me show you what it looks like. I had to bust out my reading glasses for it. I will tell you guys that. It was very small print, very small. But it shows you the high schools and then the places, like the, there's the grid going down and it shows all the colleges and how many applied out of each high school. Let's start with American University. All right, I'm picking 3 high schools, somewhat at random, but lower Montgomery County and Bethesda area, because this tends to be one of the areas of focus where people who are moving to Bethesda, it's like they're interested in these high schools. So let's do this. American University. Walter Johnson High School had 76 applicants. 47 were accepted. That's a 61% acceptance rate. Walt Whitman, which everybody thinks is the best, the creme de la creme, had 47 applicants. 24 were accepted, or 51%. Winston Churchill High School had 63 applicants, 40 were accepted, and then that is basically 63%. Okay, let's keep going. GW University. Walter Johnson, 63 applied, 25 were accepted. That is a 40% acceptance rate. Walt Whitman, 49 applied, 14 were accepted, 29% acceptance rate. Winston Churchill, 77 applied, 29 accepted, 38% acceptance rate. So I was kind of fascinated by the numbers for American and GW. Those are local here to the area. They're both in DC. It's interesting that the local schools are accepting 10% less from Whitman than the other high schools. And so, you sort of think about that critically. Like, is it because their experience with Whitman is that these kids are really striving for something more elite than the level of American or GW? Don't know. Let's keep going, though. Let's go now out of the area. Let's go to Brown University. Walter Johnson, you had 16 who applied to Brown. 3 were accepted. That's 19%. Walt Whitman, 44 applied. 3 were accepted, 6.8%. Winston Churchill, 41 applied. 2 were accepted, 4.8%. These are very curious numbers. So you would have had a better chance from a percentage basis to not be one of the large pool of Whitman students vying for a seat at Brown. You'd be better off if you were at Walter Johnson. Brown was only going to accept, it looks like, 2 or 3 from each high school with no obvious preference for one school over the other. This, I think, is different than what we saw for American and GW. That was kind of like you would think that those admissions committees are a lot more familiar with the local high schools, and maybe they feel like, hey, we're a safety school for these kids at Whitman. They're striving for something beyond what we have. And GW and American are great schools. Like, they're not Ivy, but they are right up there with it. So, okay. Let's move on. Duke University. Walter Johnson, 28 applied to Duke. 3 were accepted. Walt Whitman, 55 applied. 4 were accepted. Winston Churchill, 48 applied. 1 was accepted. All right, the Whitman students fared no better here. Duke is only accepting 3 to 4 students from the area high schools. If you're at Whitman, you're just going to be in a bigger pool of applicants. There's just more high achievers there. So I can understand where people say, like, hey, I'd love to have my kids around all that, but it's not going to necessarily improve the outcome for college. All right, let's go to the big guns, you guys. Let's go to Harvard. Walter Johnson, 18 applied from Walter Johnson, 1 was accepted. Walt Whitman, 26 applied, 1 was accepted. Winston Churchill, 41 applied and 4 were accepted. Harvard is picky, but they also took 3 students from Montgomery Blair in Silver Spring. The numbers to me are always so interesting. It's like, do the college admissions committees know that they're already like a safety school for kids at Whitman, but then maybe not so at another area? So then they're more inclined to offer admission to students from high schools where they have a higher enrollment rate. Kind of interesting stuff. All right, let's move on. University of Virginia. They took 20 of the 123 students who applied from Whitman, which is 16%. They only took 14 students from the 100 that applied from Walter Johnson. Please don't tell me I have to do the percent for you guys on that one. I think that one you can figure out. And then 9 of the 108 who applied from Winston Churchill, 100 got in. That's 8.3%. Okay, so those are a little bit different numbers, a little bit of a different outcome. Columbia took 4 kids from Whitman, but they took hardly any from any other area high schools. So these stats are like a wild ride, you guys. Before you buy a house solely because of the high school, make sure that you get your hands on this little sucker, the September-October issue of Bethesda Magazine. I promise you, it is worth researching before you make an extra expensive decision on a home, just for the perception of the quality of the high school. All right, that is my update on Montgomery County. I hope that that was helpful. If you have any questions, I have dove into this quite deeply. Please contact me. My contact info is coming next.